Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
A former Chula Vista council member has been sentenced on grand theft charges. Thanks for joining us. I'm John Carroll in for Maya Trabulsi. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki was in the courtroom for the story.
We're here outside the San Diego County Superior Courthouse in downtown San Diego. Just this afternoon, former Chula Vista City Council member Andrea Cardenas was sentenced to 2 years of probation and 100 hours of community service. In February, Cardenas pleaded guilty to stealing more than $200,000 from state and federal taxpayers, along with her brother, political consultant Jesus Cardenas. County prosecutors said they used the money to pay off personal expenses, including credit card bills, and made contributions to one of Cardenas's campaign accounts. Today, the former council member arrived at the courthouse just before her hearing at 1:30. Pedro Bernal is Cardenas's attorney. In court, he emphasized that Cardenas was a young politician with less experience, who had overcome many challenges in rising to the city council, and said her brother was largely responsible for their crimes.
I think the court saw this case just like we did, that the punishment that she has already served, having to resign her position, losing her job, is punishment enough.
Deputy District Attorney Chandel Boyce argued that Cardenas knew what she was doing and warned that her actions as an elected official would increase mistrust in local government.
It has a trickle-down effect because the public is watching. There's a lot of news stories about these cases, and it causes the people in our community to lose faith in local government. So it's an additional harm.
Cardenas will have to pay back all of the money that she fraudulently obtained from state and federal agencies. In November, Chula Vista voters will choose a new city council member to represent District 4 in the southwest corner of the city. The winner of the election in November will serve in District 4 for another 4 years. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
We're learning more about the 2 San Diego police officers involved in a deadly crash following a high-speed chase in Claremont Mesa Monday night. One of the officers was killed and the other is still fighting for his life. 30-year-old Austin Machetar died at the scene when a speeding driver hit his patrol car. Our media partner KGTV spoke with the Police Officer Association president, who says Machetar was a kind man who was passionate about his duties as a field training officer.
Very hard-working officer, very warm, well-respected amongst his peers as a field training officer. He's a local kid from Otay Ranch, went to high school there and played varsity baseball, and his loss is very, very impactful. In fact, he was the training officer for Zach, his partner that night, when he was in training a few months back. When we lose one of our friends, especially how it happened, it's dramatic. It's horrible.
The other officer in that patrol car, 27-year-old Officer Zach Martinez, is in the hospital with severe injuries. The California Highway Patrol is investigating the circumstances surrounding the crash. There's a new head of the San Diego County Citizen Law Enforcement Review Board. Brett Kalina was named CLRB's new executive officer today. Kalina has 20 years of investigative experience as a special agent with the FBI. He also served as president of the FBI's Bureau of Equality. CLRB investigates citizen complaints against San Diego sheriff and probation officers and recommends policy changes to improve policing practices. Kalina starts next Tuesday, September 3rd.
Tonight, we're dropping down to a low of 67. Yes, we've been talking about a deepening marine layer, so we are dealing with a few low clouds there near the coast, gradually and slowly spreading across some of those further inland valleys. So heads up, you may run into some tricky travel, maybe some lowered visibility, though temperature-wise, a little bit cooler for the middle half of the week. We'll tell you when temperatures start to rise yet again.
With school back in session and fall sports ramping up nationwide, word of yet another teen athlete's death is making headlines today. Laura Aguirre brings us more, including one grieving father's campaign to protect other student athletes.
You wish it was a bad dream that you could wake up from.
Ryan Craddock's 13-year-old son, Cohen, was an 8th grader at Madison Middle School in Boone County, West Virginia.
Loved to make other people happy. He liked to, joke.
He also loved playing football, and that's what Craddock says his son was doing last Friday when he took a hard hit during practice that led to a brain bleed and swelling. Cohen died Saturday, making him the 3rd student football player to die nationwide this month alone.
He was the one that always had a smile on his face.
That same Friday, in Selma, Alabama, 16-year-old quarterback Caden Tallier suffered a fatal brain injury during his season opener.
His spirit and who he was is going to live on, and it's going to impact a lot of people.
And earlier this month, 14-year-old Samaj Wilkins died after experiencing a medical emergency during football practice drills in Coffee County, Alabama, according to the county coroner. These tragic losses are just the latest in the U.S. The National Center for Catastrophic Sport Injury Research says 16 players died in 2023, ranging from youth league to college age. 13 of those confirmed to be related to football activities, causes like traumatic brain injuries, heat stroke, and sudden heart or lung failures. Cohen Craddock's father is channeling his grief into action, saying he will campaign to have players provided with guardian caps to offer extra head protection during tackles.
I don't want anybody else to experience this.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
Updated COVID vaccines targeting the flirt variants are already in some San Diego County pharmacies. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says the vaccines from Moderna and Pfizer are for everyone 12 years and older.
CVS health pharmacist Saif Namik says the updated Moderna and Pfizer vaccines have already arrived at CVS pharmacies throughout San Diego County, including at the Chula Vista location.
Patients can make an appointment. They can make an appointment for up to 4 patients at a time. So if they want to bring their family members, their caregivers, or just friends, they can just make an appointment at the same time. This one has a date.
Namik says the new vaccines can protect against circulating variants this fall and winter.
We are seeing a spike in cases every now and then. So that's why we highly encourage patients for that reason and for the fact that the vaccine can wean off after a while.
Namik says access to the vaccines might become more difficult.
You're all set.
People who are uninsured or underinsured. The Center for Disease Control program, offering free boosters to those groups, ends on August 31st.
Most insurance companies do cover for the vaccine. If the patient does not have insurance, the out-of-pocket cost is $201.99.
Namik recommends the elderly and immunocompromised get boosted right away and to get tested if you're feeling unwell. Kaiser says pharmacies have already started receiving the vaccine and plan to begin taking appointments in September. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the News Hour, why Israel has launched a major operation in the occupied West Bank. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Former President Donald Trump is once again facing a new indictment for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. This as Vice President Kamala Harris prepares to sit down for her first interview since becoming the Democratic nominee. Brian Abel has more from the White House.
This indictment is a new version of the same charges brought by special counsel Jack Smith before the Supreme Court decision appeared to gut his original case. This time around, this filing, the former president will not face a jury before the election.
A new indictment against former President Donald Trump with fewer than 70 days until the election. Special counsel Jack Smith again leveling charges of corruption and obstruction and conspiracies to defraud the government. Smith reworking the original indictment after the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. removing parts of it and attempting to style much of the remaining allegations as that of a candidate rather than a president acting in his official capacity to get around the issue at the center of the court's ruling.
So I think this is basically Jack Smith saying, I still got this, right? He's basically sanitized the original indictment a bit.
Trump taking to Truth Social to rail against the revised January 6th related indictment, calling it ridiculous. While Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, campaign in battleground Georgia, Trump, in an interview with Dr. Phil, claiming without evidence that both Harris and President Joe Biden bear some responsibility for the assassination attempt against him.
I think to a certain extent it's Biden's fault and Harris's fault. And I'm the opponent. Look, they were weaponizing government against me. They weren't too interested in my health and safety. They were making it very difficult to have proper staffing in terms of Secret Service.
The Biden administration has said it supports full transparency and a complete investigation.
And in another high-stakes moment for this election, the vice president will, for the first time since becoming the nominee for Democrats, sit down for an interview. She will be joined by her running mate. That interview will air on CNN at 9 p.m. tomorrow night. At the White House, I'm Brian Abel reporting.
Once again, Donald Trump is making the threat of migrant crime one of his main election talking points. But as KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis explains, research shows that immigrants are actually less likely to commit crimes than people born in the United States.
Leading up to the presidential election, politicians are using fear of migrant crime as a rationale for policies like mass deportation and more border walls. Sometimes the rhetoric is subtle, simply casting suspicion on people crossing the border illegally. Here is El Cajon Mayor and Republican congressional candidate Bill Wells.
There are a lot of people coming over. We have no idea who they are. And it stands to reason that many of them will be criminals.
And sometimes it's much more overt, like former President Donald Trump at this year's Republican National Convention.
They're coming from prisons. They're coming from jails. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums.
And we are all less safe because of it.
And bad things are going to happen, and you're seeing it happen all the time. That's why, to keep our families safe, the Republican platform promises to launch the largest deportation operation in the history of our country.
Democrats largely condemn Trump for demonizing immigrants. But they also tout their own policies aimed at getting tough at the border. In 2020, President Joe Biden ran on a platform to roll back harsh Trump-era immigration policies. But at the Democratic National Convention last week, Kamala Harris supported tough border measures.
Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it.
But these actions, all in the name of protecting American citizens from migrant crime, are not backed up by the available facts.
In all of the cities that have seen large numbers of migrants arriving, crime is actually going down right now. So not only is there not a migrant crime wave, there's not even a crime wave.
That's Aaron Reichlin-Melnick, the policy director for the American Immigration Council. He points to local crime data in cities with large immigrant populations, including New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and San Diego. In all of them, violent crime is down compared to last year. In fact, several studies show that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than people born in the U.S. Consider research by Alex Norathta of the libertarian-leaning Cato Institute. He has studied crime rates in Texas, the only state that includes immigration status in its crime data.
But the results of all the papers are pretty similar to each other in that they all find that native-born Americans have the highest criminal conviction rates and arrest rates. Illegal immigrants have rates in the middle, and then legal immigrants have the lowest.
Norathta's research shows that undocumented immigrants in Texas are 26% less likely to be convicted of homicide compared to people born in the U.S., and legal immigrants are 60% less likely.
And what I show in this research is that as a policy, or if the goal is to reduce violent and property offenders, mass deportations of illegal immigrants will not reduce the crime rate.
But even these hard facts can be no match for America's centuries-old anti-immigrant narrative. At various points in history, Irish, Italian, and Japanese immigrants have all been considered threats to public safety. And one way politicians like Trump stoke fear is to cherry-pick examples of gruesome, horrific crimes committed by immigrants. Here again is Reichland Melnick.
And of course, there have been individual incidents which are truly horrific. You have seen several women who have been murdered by individuals who were undocumented, and these have been truly awful circumstances, and my heart goes out to the family.
Yet, he says that one thing that's always missing from these accounts is context. These are isolated examples from a population of more than 12 million people.
It is not correct to point at one or two instances and use that to extrapolate out to an entire population of people of diverse backgrounds, religions, faiths, creeds, national origins, who really only share one thing, and that is a lack of paperwork.
Experts like Reichland Melnick and Noratha say they will continue to confront lies with disinformation. They believe it's important to keep reminding people of what is true, what is not true, and what we simply don't know yet. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
A big financial boost for San Diego organizations that provide critical services for asylum seekers. San Diego Representative Juan Vargas announced more than $43 million in funding today. That's in addition to $39 million announced in April. Catholic Charities, part of the Diocese of San Diego, received $21 million, and $22 million went to Jewish Family Services of San Diego. They support migrants with food, shelter, clothing, medical care, and transportation as they await their immigration court proceedings. Another North County city is discussing whether to adopt a ban on homeless encampments. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen has more on last night's Carlsbad City Council meeting.
Carlsbad right now doesn't have an encampment ban, and that, residents say, is bringing more people experiencing homelessness into their city. Following the grants pass ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court, more cities in San Diego are implementing encampment bans, including Escondido and Vista. The grants pass ruling allowed cities to enforce a camping ban even if there aren't any shelters available. A previous ruling requires cities to have available shelters before enforcing a camping ban. Now Carlsbad is exploring its own encampment ban, but homeless advocates say camping bans don't work.
Criminalization strategies such as encampment evictions and punitive measures are not only costly but have repeatedly been shown to be ineffective. They fail to provide lasting solutions and instead drain city resources.
Others, however, disagree, saying it's a safety issue and camping bans help people get off the streets.
There are so many resources in here. I don't understand why anyone in Carlsbad is homeless. It's not safe for many of the individuals living on our streets with behavioral health issues and substance abuse, nor is it safe for residents or visitors.
The City Council directed staff to explore the issue further, including getting feedback from the Housing Commission before bringing it back to the Council for further discussion. During the meeting, the Council also approved a plan to use a state grant to clean up encampments along the 78 corridor and to get people into permanent housing. In the newsroom, Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
As more than 50 million people are under heat alerts nationwide, a new study shows heat-related deaths in the U.S. have been steadily increasing for years. According to the medical journal JAMA, heat-related deaths spiked 117% between 1999 and 2022. More than 21,000 people died during that period, with a disproportionate number of deaths recorded in Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and California.
Breaking down what we need to know as we head throughout the rest of the week. And of course, a lot of people are thinking about the weekend. It is a holiday weekend, so maybe a long weekend for you. We do have night and morning coastal clouds, though, here on tap over the next few days, and that's going to spread across the valleys to a little bit further inland. Dry and sunny, though, even further east across the deserts and the mountains, though we are warming up again by next week. Temperatures not cool by any means, but coming down slightly here for the middle half of the week when it comes to our highs. When it comes to our lows, 62 in Oceanside tonight, 67 in San Diego. Ramona, you're down to the mid-50s, and Borrego Springs down to the low 70s, though by tomorrow we're rising back up to the triple digits. Though further west along the coast, really not too bad. 77 in San Diego, Oceanside 78. You'll note, of course, we do have some of those early clouds, though Mount Laguna, blazing sun with a high of 73. Now, we do have an increase in monsoonal moisture, but a lot of that action is going to stay well off towards our east, not quite being able to penetrate Southern California. So a lot of our zone, a lot of our area remaining dry. Over these next 5 days along the coast, sunny, 78 Thursday. Temperatures do dip by a few degrees. Not going to feel too many changes, though that humidity does start to rise as we head into next week. High by Monday, Labor Day, we're back up to the 80s. A little bit of a toasty holiday along the coast. Further inland, highs dropping gradually throughout the start of the weekend, though they come back up again, flirting with 90 there by next Monday. And for the mountains, highs overall remaining relatively steadier, but you'll see that slight climb by next week. Though I would say that's Goldilocks weather, highs in the 70s. Deserts, you're staying in the triple digits, so a very hot holiday weekend for you. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Bree Guy.
We're getting our first look at the huge new Terminal 1 parking plaza at San Diego International Airport. The new facility was unveiled at a ribbon-cutting ceremony today. The 5-level structure is just steps away from the existing Terminal 1. It will initially offer more than 2,800 spaces, more than double the number offered in the previous parking lot.
We have close to 25 million passengers on an annual basis, and constructing right in the middle of that is quite difficult. So we're trying to make it as convenient as possible, and this opening will make it even more convenient. People can bypass the front of the roadway, the terminal roadway, and come right into the parking and get away from that traffic in front of the terminal.
The new Terminal 1 parking plaza increases the current overall available parking at the airport to more than 6,000 spaces. It comes just ahead of the busy Labor Day travel weekend. Becker says the airport expects their busiest travel days to be Thursday and Sunday night into Monday morning. Well, it's still weeks away from its official opening, but we now have a much better idea of what the newly renovated Jacobs Music Center looks and sounds like inside. We got a special sneak peek on Tuesday, and let's just say the long-delayed reopening is worth the wait. You experience the history of this place in the lobby of Symphony Hall. What is now the Jacobs Music Center began its life in 1929 as the Fox Theater, one of the grand movie palaces of the day. It's been the Symphony's home since 1985. If you've never been here before, or you need a reminder of what this place used to look like, here's a pretty good representation. Lots of heavy, dark red colors, draperies, this valance that cut across the top of the stage. But now, light, airy, high-tech everywhere. A whole new experience.
I just couldn't contain myself.
The symphony's music director, Maestro Rafael Payare, says he screamed when he first walked in and saw it in this almost finished state.
You look around, you think how we have been waiting for and actually being able to have it. I had to, and then I apologize because I think people got scared, but that's all right.
The $125 million renovation of this 95-year-old building began after the pandemic hit, and now, some 3 years later, it's just about ready to welcome audiences once again.
Watching it emerge and knowing that all of the details that I do, to really see them come to life is an experience in life that I never expected to be able to have, and that is just truly a gift.
Seeing this place come to life took the work of hundreds of people. The result of that work was laid out in a tour for the media on Tuesday. We saw places that the public doesn't usually see, a new musician's lounge backstage, proper storage space for instruments, and check this out. It's a wall, but no, it's actually a hidden door where the conductor will emerge onto the stage.
It is with this legion of people that has made this happen. And, you know, the dreamers, the designers, the practical, the engineers.
We specialize in the design of concert halls, theaters, opera houses, music schools, and museums.
That's Paul Scarborough. He's one of those engineers Martha Gilmer was talking about. More precisely, he's a sound guy. an acoustician. He says the acoustics here are some of the best in the world. That's been achieved by utilizing state-of-the-art adjustable acoustic panels above the stage and movable wall pieces behind the screen mesh that surrounds the stage and the house walls.
Now there's more acoustical breathing room around the ensemble, and that volume is much better connected to the volume of the auditorium, so it acts more like a single acoustic.
We got to hear those acoustics during a rehearsal last night. The sound in the balcony is clear and crisp, a foretaste of what is to come for generations of audiences in what Rafael Peare says will be one of the finest concert halls on the planet. Another great reason to live in San Diego. It's just gorgeous. The official opening of the Jacobs Music Center will be on September 28th. One way to stay up to date is to sign up for KPBS newsletters. Options include Headlines, KPBS Arts, and North County Focus, which we launched just this year. Go to the KPBS newsletters section at kpbs.org to see more. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, more schools across the country are starting to ban students' cell phones during classes. As one Colorado school tries it out, staff say they like it. Students, not so much. And KPBS Midday Edition will have the Weekend Arts Preview. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm John Carroll. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.